I've been wanting to make up this 1940s overalls pattern for myself for quite a while now, and so I finally got myself some cotton twill and got started. Conveniently for me, I had already made up two mock-ups of the pants portion of this pattern a few years back. I made one of each in two sizes, and I still had them laying around, so I was able to try on the mock-ups and see which size would kind of fit me best. After I had chosen my size, I traced it onto sturdier paper and transferred all of the pattern markings, and also added the seam allowance. I always like to mark the seam allowance because it makes it so much easier to do any kind of alterations later on. So I've got a number of my pattern pieces traced out onto sturdier paper. I decided not to worry about the single size pieces at this point, so like the pockets and the shoulder straps. So I've got the pants front and back and the bodice back, and it's facing cut, traced and cut out of their pattern paper. And I tried tissue fitting the bodice front for a while, just like to kind of see what size to even start with and what adjustments I might need to make. And for whatever reason, even though it's a very simple pattern piece, my brain is just not doing it today. So what I've decided to do is make up the bottom portion, the pants and the waistband, and then take some scrap fabric, quilting cotton or something, and drape a bodice front of my own to fit me exactly, and then make a paper pattern out of that. So we will see how it goes. I began the sewing process by stay stitching the waist edges of the pants pieces and sewing in my darts. And for darts, I always like to stitch right off the point and then tie those threads off by hand instead of back stitching at the point, which is more likely to create that sort of bubble effect. I stitched the inner leg seams of my pants, and then I got ready to finish those seams, and I chose the flat felling method. I've seen this method used on some of my husband's work pants, and it seemed like a very sturdy method to use as well as vintage appropriate. I chose to stitch down my felling just with my machine, so top stitching it for speed and ease and probably a little bit more stability. And I decided to go ahead and press the seam allowance toward the front on one leg and toward the back on the other leg so that the seam allowances would offset when I stitched the right and left sides together in the crotch seam. Alright, so I've got the pants portion done. I just finished finishing my outer leg seams by hand this time, and that was a little tedious and a little bit of a hand workout because the denim is so stiff. So I think I am ready to try for draping the bodice portion after, well, according to the pattern, you're supposed to sew the waistband to the bodice and then sew the whole thing to the pants. I might at least baste one of the waistband pieces to the pants first so that I have something to go by and I can try them on and know where my edges need to be. But first, I think I've been working for a while now, so I need a little snack break, maybe some tea or something, and definitely need to stop hunching over. And then after that, I might just see what the day is looking like and whether or not I'm up for trying the next steps today or if it will have to wait. To drape the bodice portion, I attached the back bodice and the waistband to my pants and tried them on, and then grabbed a large scrap of canvas and pinned that to my blouse down the center front and sort of just pinned it along the waistband as it would fit me and pinned it across my blouse and just sort of shaped and pressed and tucked until I got it right. The pattern has only one dart on each side of the bodice front, and that dart goes upward diagonally toward the armpit shoulder area. And because of my shape, I decided to split it into two darts instead. So I added a waist seam dart and a side seam dart instead of going upward, because for some reason the fabric just didn't really want to lay that way. So I figured I would just go with the flow of the fabric and do my own thing. After I drew in all of my stitching lines on my scrap of canvas, I took it to my table and laid out some pattern paper over the top of it and traced it. I then made sure that the side seams would match up nicely with the side seams of the back bodice piece, and then I was ready to trace it again for a facing and cut it out. I assembled the bodice and attached the straps and attached my bodice to my waistband and my waistband to my pants, and I was ready to make my buttonholes and finally sew my buttons in place. Just for fun, I decided to sew my 4-hole buttons on diagonally and put my stitches in fanning out from the bottom hole. You couldn't see it very well with the dark brown thread, but then I went in later on with some tan colored embroidery floss to sort of accent it, and I really like the effect. When I was going to go and turn up my hem allowance for the pants, I realized that I had made a little mistake. I just sort of assumed that the pants mock-up that I had done a few years ago, like that I had done it all correctly, but I had actually not allowed for the correct amount of fabric for the cuff on those pants, and since I based the length of this newly traced pattern off from those pants, I came up a little bit wrong. So instead of turning the hem allowance to the inside, double the width of the cuff, and then turning the cuff back out, I wound up having to just cuff it straight from this length, so folding it up twice on the outside. And I last minute added a fun little bit of feminine embroidery on the pockets. I am super happy with the way these overalls turned out. I find them to be cute and vintagey and practical and so comfortable. I took them straight down to our garden just for fun to see if there happened to be any pickable produce. And there wasn't, because we're in the middle of a very cold spell, and so the veggies have kind of stopped growing, unfortunately. It hasn't stopped the weeds from coming up, however, and our garden has turned into a little bit of a jungle, but that's okay. Sometimes it happens, that's life, and there's always next year. Thank you all so much for watching. I hope that wherever you are, garden or no garden, jungle or no jungle, you are able to feel content and look at the future with anticipation and excitement. I will see you all next time.